Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity. Hosted by 3 Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for coffee and conversation. Welcome back. You're listening to part 2 of our interview with Jill Vitale-Aussem as she discusses COVID-19 and its impact on senior living.
Given what we've been going through in this in the world with COVID-19 and this crisis, we have seen some pretty tragic things happening in senior living, and that is, of course, sad. Of course, it is, but I think it's probably also maybe making people reconsider whether they would ever move into senior living or they would advise their parents to move into senior living. Now, we have all been advocates of senior living, but is it time that we sort of reconsider that? I don't, but I wanted to hear what you say and what Eden Alternative feel and some of the experiences that you've had during this time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think this is a time to reconsider that. In a lot of the stories, what I think people need to remember, and those of us who don't work in the field sometimes can lump everything together, right? A nursing home with assisted living, with a retirement community, and they are different. And even with the stories about nursing homes, there are always some bad apples. There are. But the majority of nursing homes in this country are really good people trying to do a really good job right now, completely committed to the folks that live in their community and that live in their communities. And they're struggling a bit right now. But I will say this, and I do want to talk a little bit about the non-nursing home living too. But, if there is any place that knows how to do infection control, it's a nursing home. This isn't the first go around. I was a nursing home administrator for many, many years, and every year it's influenza, it's norovirus, it's, on and on and on. And that is we know how to do these things. Now, this is a even more challenging situation. So I would say that I'd feel more comfortable that a nursing home is sanitized than I probably would be going to the grocery store, right? Because that's not necessarily what grocery stores are always good at.
So this really exposed those who were not doing it, were not up to snuff, whereas those, I think, who are doing a good job, even though they may have had been to deal with it and have cases, but they were much more prepared to do with that.
Yeah, and the other thing I would just say is, even in really good places, even with the best infection control, this virus still gets in because you have people who are carrying it with no symptoms, and you have staff coming in and they have no idea, and people live in close quarters in nursing homes. So, it's not to say that, we know really, really great places that have had outbreaks. Now they're able to keep it under control, but it's not only bad places that are having outbreaks. And the other thing I would say about senior living, right? My parents live in a life plan community, and they live in an independent living apartment. And I am so thankful that they are there. And they are so thankful that they are there because my mom has family members, sisters, they have friends that live at home alone and who are already isolated. And now they're completely isolated. And you have to put yourself at risk to go to the grocery store. And you're stuck in this. And some of these people that I'm talking about live in these huge houses. They're all alone. And we know what isolation does to people, right? And my parents, yes, they're in their apartment most of the time right now, but they've got people around. And even in these nursing homes, even though people are socially distanced, they're still getting together. They're even doing hallway things where everybody's sitting in their doorways. But my parents, in these communities, you have people making sure you have food. And that for me is, I would be very, very concerned if my parents were living at home right now.
Isn't that something? That's not something we expected to hear, that someone living in a retirement community, a continuing care retirement community, feels sorry for those who don't during this time. Wow. That's, I understand it, but I don't think many people were prepared to hear something like that.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing to remember with independent living, and, I don't think people should pull people out of nursing homes and things like that, but independent living apartments, you can self-isolate because you have an apartment, right? And you have your own kitchen, and like a lot of places you have a balcony. So it's harder for the virus to spread than it is with a whole bunch of people who are all in one area together. And I think people need to keep that in mind too, is you have the best of both worlds. You have a comfortable place where you can be by yourself, and then you have supportive services. And that's in the worst of times, right? In the best of times, then you've got this whole community, vibrant life.
So, Jill, I read in your recent article, Our Devastating Disregard for Eldercare Workers, where you mentioned that society is failing to recognize those working in aging services during the pandemic. So what can and should we be doing about this?
A lot of what we're doing in society right now and what the media is doing is rightfully recognizing those who are working in hospitals. Yeah. And that's great. And there's all kinds of recognition, and there should be. But what is missing is really recognizing the incredibly hard work that is being done by the folks that work in nursing homes, assisted living, senior living communities. They are just as important to this fight as those working in hospitals. And, one of the things that somebody had said to me is, please don't call us heroes, but we are warriors. We are warriors that are, charging into this. And even though we're scared and we're dealing with all these challenges, we're still doing this work. And, what the other thing is that there are challenges that are happening. These communities are having a really hard time getting the personal protective equipment that they need. They are doing the very best that they can. And one of my concerns about this is, our society has never really valued those that support older people. I believe that's because of the way we view aging in our society. And right now, it's even more devastating. So we've got these people who are working their tails off, who are, fearful themselves, but they're there to care for the elders. And they're not only not getting recognition, but any kind of story that's out there is usually negative. Yeah. about them. And so what I'm seeing happening, and having been a nursing home administrator and working with folks for so many years, is, it's kind of like they're fighting this war, which is hard enough, but then they're being disregarded. And I'm seeing the signs of burnout, that, they're still smiling and we got this, but there will be fallout from this. And that concerns me, because we've got an aging population, and we have more people that are going to need care and supportive services in the future. And we're at risk of losing people from this field because of really the trauma of this whole situation and the lack of support. And then we're further stigmatizing this field. Yeah. Who's going to want to come work in the field when you see all these horrible stories? So what I'm encouraging people to do, and I would encourage people who are listening to this podcast to do, is find ways to support the care communities in your area. And not just the ones that don't have things going on, but the places where there are outbreaks happening. They need your support more than ever. I mean, these are human beings who are heartbroken in these communities. So, some of the things that different communities have done is, dropping off prepackaged food to people, donating money to help them, because their expenses have gone up so much with the cost of masks and gloves. Some places have, neighbors have gone out and drawn beautiful artwork on their sidewalks, saying, we appreciate you, we love you. Even just reaching out and saying, can we help? And know that these people are super busy and they might not be able to have the answer right away. But even just the simple act of saying, we have your back, makes such a difference right now. The other thing I would recommend is when you see stories that are one-sided and aren't providing another side to the story, is to, write a letter to the editor, contact the journalist that wrote that story. We've got to start shifting this narrative.
Well said. And we will make sure to include a link to that article in this podcast description. I love what you said about, we hear the negative, but we don't hear all the good that's happening behind the scenes and how to show support. So thank you for that. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.